Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we will continue reading the fourth droplet of the 19th word. We've been studying the 19th word for the past several weeks. The 19th word started, I could not praise Muhammad with my words, rather, my words were made praiseworthy by Muhammad. Yes, this word is beautiful, but what makes it so is the most beautiful of all things, the attributes and qualities of Muhammad, alayhi salam. And then we discussed a lot of things. But the book of the universe, the seal of the prophets. We discussed the Quran and how the tree of prophethood was a big topic that we covered. What is the tree of prophethood? How do we find this tree of prophethood? How does it become real for us? And then we moved on to the second droplet where it was talking about a lot of interesting things. It was talking about the indications of the prophet, from things like the soothsayers to the unanimous testimony of other beings, and things like the splitting of the moon, like miracles, the Sharia, the legal law, all these things. And then also to his character, his extraordinary fear of God, his seriousness in worship, his seriousness in belief that he demonstrated. So the second droplet was going to all these indications of him as a prophet, and I guess showing how truthful the prophet was. And then the third droplet we studied was we were going to this Arabian Peninsula in our imaginations. Imam Nursi has a tendency sometimes, let's imagine we go to the Arabian Peninsula and we find this human who is, we find this riddle of the world, this puzzle, and he's bringing a message that makes clear this puzzle of the world, this riddle. And he talks about how we find satisfying answers to three very difficult questions. Where do I come from? What am I doing here? And what is my destination? These are the questions that the Prophet ﷺ, he came and he brought answers to these questions with his message. And this is another proof, maybe I would say one of the strongest proofs, or one of the stronger proofs of his message, because it solves your problems in your life. It answers those questions that you have. And then, so we had read the third droplet last week, and then we also had read the fourth droplet. And the fourth droplet, I am trying to remember. Um, yeah, I mean, the fourth droplet seems, you look around, and because of the message, things that were dumb and dead and inanimate, we read the fourth droplet fully, right? Yeah, things that were dumb and dead and inanimate, things that look like they're meaningless, things that look like they're out to get you, your enemies. Something happens, it's my enemy out there, or it happened randomly, it's just unlucky. All these things that kind of turn your world into a hell, or put you into darkness, or they don't satisfy you. They just kind of leave you sad and like grieving and anxious. It transforms your world. The message that he brings, it transforms all these dead enemies and dumb enemies and evil enemies into now being messengers, or now being created by God, or now they exist for a purpose. All these things that you were previously crying about, or that would make you cry, now you see that they're not strangers and they're not enemies, and they could be something else for you. Again, it answers, it answers your questions, but it also makes the world around you more beautiful when you live according to the message. It doesn't just stay as a message. It doesn't just stay as words on paper, or something that people say they believe in, but rather you feel its value in your life very intimately, both in the third droplet with the questions you have, like, why am I here? Where am I going? What's my purpose? But now also I see that it's solving, like it's making just the world around me much better. And yeah, that's as much as I remember. Any Before we go to the fifth droplet, anyone remember some point that stayed with them, or something that they felt could use a reminder or something that they would like to comment on before we continue. Tough crowd. Okay. Yeah. Inshallah, then we can continue with the fifth droplet. I am looking all the way to my right to see some courageous people. Arsalan, Ahmed. Huh? I don't know. I'm trying to get a fifth droplet. Yeah.
Fifth droplet. Also through the being's light, the motion and the movement of the universe and its variations, changes, and transformations cease being meaningless, futile, and the playthings of chance. They rise to being dominical missives, pages inscribed with the signs of creation, mirrors to the divine names, and the world itself becomes a book of the eternally besought one's wisdom. Man's boundless weakness and impotence, poverty and need make him inferior to all other animals, while his intelligence, an instrument for conveying grief, sorrow, and sadness, makes him more wretched. Yet, when he is illumined with that light, he rises above all animals and all creatures. Through entreaty, his illuminated impotence, poverty, and intelligence make him a petted monarch. Due to his complaints, he becomes a spoiled vicegerent of the earth. That is to say, if it were not for that being's light, the universe and the man and all things would be nothing. Yes, certainly such a person is necessary in such a wondrous universe. Otherwise, the universe and firmaments would not be in existence. Do you want me to continue?
No, we can stop. I think there's a lot to unpack there. Also, I feel like I don't know. Is everyone too far? But that's fine. Okay. Um, so the fifth droplet, I think there's a lot of important things here. Anything capture your attention initially though? Okay. So I think let's go maybe paragraph by paragraph because I do think there's a lot of things to unpack. So also through his light, the motion and movement of the universe. So his light, uh, I think he's talking about the prophet's light here, even though they capitalized the L. Um, would you agree? The prophet's light or the message that he brought? Okay. The light of the prophet's message, the motion and the movement of the universe and its variation, changes, and transformations cease being meaningless, futile, and the playthings of chance. They arise to being dominical missives, pages inscribed with the signs of creation, mirrors to the divine names, and the world itself becomes a book of the eternally besought one's wisdom. And kind of, I think we briefly touched on this in the previous droplet or in our little introduction. But I think it's the initial view of the universe that's giving to us, changes and transformations cease being meaningless. Like before they were meaningless. The fact that the sun rises and the moon sets, or the sun sets and the moon rises, or the fact that, there's a fire that's burning down homes, or there's this climate change, or all these different things, all of these things really they're just meaningless. Uh they're the playthings of chance. Like, oh, if you live in a place that got burned down by fire, unlucky, you're just bad luck. Make sure you buy insurance. If they're not giving you insurance, then unlucky again. All your investment is gone. Uh, this is, I'm sure this is what the people in California are feeling. The people in Florida with the hurricanes and all these different, us here, we're like, oh, I'm sure we have our own circumstances, but definitely life feels like chance, Oh, something happened and I was lucky, or something happened, I was unlucky. And I don't think this is like, okay, we are Muslims and we try to, I guess, live a certain way, but still, I do find that I still carry the same mindset of chance. Like, if only that happened, if only this happened. Uh, I find that why do bad things happen to me? We might have this question, why is it always me? I have a friend who always says, why is it always me? He exclaims. And I think that's a very, it sounds like funny, but I think that's a very, it can be very depressing to think that way, to think, oh, everything is just chance, everything is just happening, it's just bad. There's nothing good to take out of this. Versus, he's saying they rise to being dominical missives, which means they're mektubatu rabbani, or they're letters from your creator, from your Rabb, your caretaker, your educator. They're personalized, let's say, even letters for you that you find. Like today when I was leaving my house, I found a bunch of junk mail in front of my door. I'm just like, why do they keep sending me this stupid junk mail? I just keep trashing it. But even between that, I saw one mail that looked important. I pulled it out, I put it to the side. It was my tax. I know they asking for my tax, but payment. But Dominical Missive, imagine I saw these important envelopes that I could tell they're important. They're personalized for me. They start get is amongst this junk mail. I find that there's some things that are meaningful in there that I can pull out. And if I can say they're all actually meaningful, it's not all just junk. Everything there actually has value. Then I won't feel angry when I'm walking out the door. I'm like, oh, it's just junk mail. I'm like, oh, all of these maybe are telling me something, I could say, in my own life. And then pages inscribed with the signs of creation, mirrors to the divine names, and the world itself becomes a book of the eternally besought one's wisdom. I mean, I feel like there's a lot to go into. I won't go too much, but mirrors to the divine names. How could something be a mirror to the divine names? I guess, what's something in our lives that previously was, let's say, meaningless, it had no purpose, but then it became a mirror to a divine name. Does anyone have an example for this, or does this actually, is this just practical for anyone's life? I'm curious. Like something in your life that before, let's say, it was meaningless, but because of the message that Muhammad Ali brought, you now look at it and you say, oh, this was actually a mirror of a divine name in my life. I'm sure it's true though. It's probably true, right? And then, okay, let's continue then. Man's boundless weakness and impotence makes him inferior to all other animals, and his intelligence, an instrument for conveying grief, sorrow, and sadness, makes him more wretched. Yet when he is illumined with that light, he rises above all animals and all creatures.
So I think like we can talk about this in multiple levels, since he is talking about this randomness and whatnot. So if we look at our I don't know what we study in the university, it looks like we are studying a lot of sciences, a lot of wisdom, but at the end of the day, the wisdom that we study boils down to what? Like I will rot. That's what it boils down to. I study a lot, I read a lot, okay. And at the end, at best, Ahmed is trying to elongate our life a few more years at best. And it's going to be a more miserable portion of my life. This is what he is trying to extend. So then what's the point? So really the life becomes so miserable if we think about it. Probably we don't feel it as much. We don't feel our misery as much because we always have a hope that I'm going to be the winner at some point. Although statistically speaking, we see that very few people are living this luxury life. How happy they are, we don't know. At least their Instagram post looks fun. But apart from that, just the hope that once I get there, I'm going to be okay, I'm going to get satisfied, is maybe making us not feel what he is describing in here. What I mean by that is when he says it's a plaything of chance, meaningless, futile. Do I really feel like this? This is what I'm asking to myself. Do I feel like my endeavors are futile and it's by chance? If I pause and think about it, yes, I do say this, but we don't pause. Like in the society life, we tend not to pause, or at least we are not supposed to be pausing. We should just keep moving. This is why I think it's very, very well presented in how Instagram is working or Twitter is working. So a flood of new things is there so that we do not pause and face our reality. So we are just, this is the solution that the apparently current civilization found for this fundamental human misery. Just amusing us so that we don't face our reality. Eventually we will face, but the more we can push it away, the better it is. So then, this being said, what should I do? Just then be honest to yourself and pause and see where we are. And when I look at it as such, like what I value in general, how valuable do they become really? Because now that I'm realizing that I'm at the boundary of 40 and I'm passing beyond, so, well, what if I own multiple houses or I own a huge house with a swimming pool and whatnot? For the kids, like what? I'm already 40. I already started, like my organs are starting to say that, oh, it's time to go. Or at least we are starting to go downhill. It's not uphill anymore. So then what is the point? And if you generalize this, many things are happening in life up until I gain those goals in life. Does it worth it? Being the question, really. I could have been, as if I would like to say, just give me some very simple life somewhere on top of a mountain, and maybe, since if at the end of the day this is what I'm going to get, does it worth it? But fast forward, if I would have been the guy on the mountaintop, still I would feel the same, because life is passing by and nothing is worth it. So world really looks so dark. But with the message that comes, everything, and thing in here is a separate word, everything becomes a sign. And when I say a sign, today when we were discussing at Drexel, there was one business student. Like business students are looking for opportunities. They are looking for a trend in those statistical numbers of prices and whatnot. They're looking for a sign to say that, oh, I saw the sign and I invested in the right company at the right time. This is the entire universe is a sign, which if you dig or if you invest in it, you are going to become eternally rich. I mean, this is a real game changer. Looking at the universe, in one sense, it was totally futile, meaningless, random. In the other one, everything becomes a sign indicating of a meaning. So this is why it's pretty much black and white. But I guess at this point, we should, two things that comes to me to question. Am I aware of this? If I'm not aware of it, why am I not aware of it?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Like, why am I not aware of this? As you said, kind of the solution the society gives us. And I really feel bad for the new generation with this YouTube shorts and TikTok and things like this. Like I remember we went somewhere and I saw a kid just open up shorts and just probably 6-year-old kid just constantly just jumping through different videos. And that's the solution that's given to him for enjoyment. And I mean, for us too, that's the solution we're given. We also get stuck in that loop maybe. But even if it's not YouTube or TikTok, which are very obviously like people know they don't feel good after them, but even let's say like our careers or day-to-day lives, the things we're doing, studying, aiming for something. I feel like constantly it's chasing something. You can't really pause to think. And if you pause to think, then that's the problem, is you're pausing. Like, the solution is don't pause. I mean, I would say this is kind of what I see in my life. It's, yeah, if I pause to think what I'm doing, it's just unbearable. So you have to just keep going. Like, oh, maybe that next thing will be good enough, or I mean, I have to do something. So the solution is just move faster, work harder, earn more. Does anyone, I guess, share that, or yeah, go instantly.
So about these things being meaningless, cease being okay, yeah, being meaningless. It sounds a little bit exaggerated first. I mean, just because you stop, reading the universe in the light of the revelation, with respect to its creator and so on, I think being meaningless, it sounds really exaggerated, at least to me at first, because when you look at it, it looks like there's meaning there. People define meaning. Like even when you strive for success, let's say, you would say, yeah, there's a meaning in what I do because it takes me to this successful point, right? So define the meaning this way and so on. But when you think about, like when you start asking the question, what it really means, like what it really means to be successful, what it really means to be being there, even the very basic stuff, like when we hear about this, the discussions about gender and so on and so forth, we usually take it as just, oh yeah, these bad people, just trying to change things and so on. But when you take it seriously and ask the question, like they ask the question, they say, for instance, what is woman, what is man, right? And genuinely enough, like read their text and so on, you see that they cannot find an answer to that. They say, okay, the man is just what is like an opposite of the woman. A woman is the opposite of the man. If this is the way you define, it doesn't mean anything. I can just switch, to change the words, and I become woman, or I become X, I become Y. It doesn't matter, right? From these, like this framework, there's no meaning in woman or man. And you can apply it to anything. Like what it means to be, let's say, an academic or a successful person. Try to define it. You will throw some words for sure, but you will realize the next moment, everything you decide is just arbitrary. This way, when there's no reference point, like when there's no such thing as, let's say, the fitra, meaning the way things are being created, is if there's no such thing, if there's no style of creation, what we call as sunnatullah, right? If there's no such thing, you cannot define anything. You have to just put some arbitrary definitions, made up definitions. So everything are serious, like a sincerely just made up when you think it that way. Without the light of revelation, meaning without realizing that things are being created and there is an order in this creation. When you neglect that, there is no point to the fight for, let's say, the reality of men, reality of women, reality of success, reality of, I don't know, anything. There's no point of talking about even that. So these people, they are actually right. It is just a language game. Everything. If you don't see that things are being created, take it away and everything really becomes meaningless. And our society right now is living this meaninglessness. Everybody realized that nothing has a meaning. It's just a language game, and I can change it as I wish. They see it. They see the meaninglessness. So it's not an exaggeration at all. And you should ask the same question to yourself. The things that you try to define, that you try to fight for, if you try to define them based on culture, based on what you learned from your father, your mom, based on so-called scientific truths and so on and so forth, nothing has any basis. It's just nothing but a language game. Only when you realize that things are being created, there is a creator, and I can point, like I can make a connection with anything in life with the creator, his choice, then things will become meaningful in the true sense. It will become other than a language game.
Exciting remarks. Did anyone get excited? No. I think yes, when we think about it, for sure, I would say it seems very meaningless. It's like, okay, all these different things you're chasing after, all these different, let's say, questions and problems that society is bringing in front of you that have no value. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I don't seem to make my choices based on that, because I still think a big house is better, has more meaning than a small house. A nice house has more meaning than a bad house. Okay, I'm going to die. The house by itself, what value does it have? Does it actually bring me happiness? I'm just like, no, I think a Tesla is better than a Subaru or something. Like all these different things, I find that I have not fully acknowledged this truth, I guess. Or maybe I'm lying to myself. But I find that comfort or things like that, I kind of do give meaning to them. And I don't know why I find them meaningful, because I guess I just enjoy comfort. I think we all enjoy comfort. But can comfort by itself be meaningful? I guess not, because it's not a comfort that lasts. So it's I guess it's clear, but at the same time, it's not very clear.
So then maybe we should expand a little bit what we mean by meaningful. Like meaningless versus meaningful. For when will I say, oh, it doesn't mean anything, it's just nonsense? When would I say, oh, yeah, it makes sense? So as far as I understand, when it comes to meaning, meaning is like a letter by itself doesn't have a meaning. But when you put a few letters together and then they refer to something else, like HOME, referring to home. Home is something other than those four letters. Then you say, oh, this is a meaningful word. So it refers to something other than itself. But this other should also be worthy. If it is as flimsy as four letters themselves, then I would say, well, okay, here this points to that, but that itself is as meaningless. I got stuck there. I was not happy with those four letters. Okay, you said that these four letters refers to this house out there. Fine, but what does house refer to? Because I am looking for something that satisfies me, that satiates me. So in this sense, I guess the meaning that we are looking for is it should refer to something that's going to answer my fundamental needs as a human being. And in the text, he was referring to neediness of human being. Yes, I am needy, but does the house satisfy my need? Whatever the house that I bought refers to, does it satisfy me? Generally, house refers to comfortable life. Tesla refers to comfortable drive. Does it satisfy me? I mean, generally, these things, we don't take them that seriously. But when it comes to family, people would say that, but family, like having kids, it's sacred. It is like, no matter who that person is, it's becoming more like a not this worldly, generally speaking. When it comes to culture, forming a family is a sacred and valuable and sort of otherworldly, even if you are secular. Like, let's question, in and of itself, having the family, what sort of a meaning is there for having the family? And let's assume the family is, again, in the worldly setup, a happy family. Does this satiate me? What sort of a satisfaction am I finding in there? Because as much as it's going to remind me of my neediness, my vulnerability, which also applies to my kids, and I already have my existential problems about dying and becoming nothing, and I'm just trying to soothe this with my relationship with my kids or family. But if I think about it, well, I brought them to this world and I caused them this extra trouble that I am already going through. What sort of a happiness am I talking about? We are just trying to enjoy our mutual presence and mutual existence. But his existence is as flimsy as mine. If I really think about it, it's not a good idea either. So this is why when it comes to meaning, as the things in this existence become a sign for something that can satiate my eternal needs, an eternal maker, a creator, then I say, now it makes sense. Otherwise, no meaning exists. Because if the meaning that I point to is as temporary as the thing itself, then it becomes simply like a wagon is being pulled by another wagon, is being pulled by another wagon, just like it becomes like a cyclical argument. So this is why what it points to needs to be eternal. This is what I would call meaning. This is why if somebody says, well, how about forming a family? It doesn't change. It's just trying to frame it in a way that I'm going to make it find a little maybe harder to dismiss it in contrast to, I don't know, a Tesla. But in its nature, they're both the same.
There's also one key word here, just to add to what Yusuf said, is the what is it? The arbitrary somewhere, the plating of chance. So arbitrariness. Like when you think about the family, for instance, and you are thinking to thinking about the family as, without the light of the revelation, what you end up, it's just an arbitrary thing, a chance that I am, or the Huda is my daughter, but not, let's say, Yusuf's daughter. It's just a chance. Like you cannot explain it otherwise. You can talk about the genes and so on and so forth, for sure, but that's it. Like why I have these genes, but Yusuf has some other genes, just chance. There is no tie between two of us in reality. You want to add something? Yeah.
And this is why with the new technology, we would like to engineer our kids.
Yeah.
Like our modifying our car. As if I'm going to get a better version of Tesla, I would like to get a better version of a child. which means even with the family, it goes to the same.
Exactly. So it doesn't have any real tie between two of us from this point of view, right? It could be Bushra, it could be Zainab, who cares? But after like at the end, for again some strange reasons, when Huda does something silly, I find it cute. When, let's say, Zainab does the same thing, I find it silly, right? As if there's, again, these arbitrary feelings about her. And how do you explain it? Oh, you talk about the evolution. I mean, when you start talking, there's always some sentences to articulate, for sure. Do you believe it? No. You just say it's just the plaything of chance. There is no, like as you said, like a sacredness between two of us. In Quran, it's very interesting. Like when Quran states such a, the obvious things, says we created man from water, and then the rest in Surah Furqan, if I'm not mistaken, we made ties between human beings either through blood, like Huda and myself, or through marriage. Why you are saying this? Everybody knows that. The point there is that we made ties. So then the things becomes non-arbitrary, because we has a lot of meaning now. We means the wise one, the just one, the merciful one, the one who put the sun as a lamp for me, made this tie between Huda and me. So this tie now has a meaning. To the extent universe has wisdom, there is such wisdom between two of us. Now I love it. It's not an arbitrary thing anymore. It's a story for me written by the most authoritative author that I can read now. Before, there was nothing to read. It was just arbitrary, random chance, whatever. And nobody, I mean, when you think about it, everybody loves their children for sure. But it's not surprising that as the communities become less and less, let's say, trained by the revelation, family ties weaken. Why not? Why not weaken? I mean, you should, instead of saying that or criticizing such societies, including ours, because our relationship with the revelation is getting weaker, right? As a consequence, our family relationships getting weaker as well. Instead of asking why or criticizing, you should actually ask why not. I mean, what is the point between Huda and me? Why should I take care of her? There's no answer. You cannot give me an answer. Without the revelation, without the fact that the tie is created, try to give one answer why I should take care of her. It's pointless. It's even, a burden on my shoulder. I shouldn't do it if you are a logical person.
Because it's fun.
Because it's fun, yeah, but you can find some other fun things.
And actually, you do it as much as it is fun.
Yes.
This is why when it starts getting annoying, I try to find a way to somebody else take care of this not so fun part of it.
Exactly. So everything we have in our societies that we see that there's a problem there, instead of criticizing it, just ask the question, why not? I mean, do I have any reason it become different than what it is? Do I have any reason? And you will realize you don't. Why? Because your relationship with the revelation also getting weaker. Other day, while I was talking about a friend, there was a accident, like somebody drove his car into a marketplace or something in New Orleans, maybe. New Orleans? Yeah. She was saying that she lived nearby at this, the time, and it was terrifying and so on and so forth. She said, she couldn't understand it, how somebody would do it and so on. And I start asking, like, the environment was, good for that, allowing that. I start asking her, like, why do you think it's, unexpected? Why he shouldn't do that? Why not? I mean, if life is nothing but the conflicting forces, this is what they teach us, right? Starting from the primary school, life is nothing but conflicting forces. If this is the case, can you give me any reason that he shouldn't drive his car? And, get rid of these other forces that he's against? There's no reason. Why not? You should even do it. If you are not doing it, you are doing it because you are limited, restrained, restricted, whatever, within this worldview.
Did they have any reason not to report you to HR?
I hope so. I hope so. But anyway, like, for any event in your life, ask the question, why not? Any bad event, and you will not find any answer. Why? Because everything is arbitrary, as author says, no exaggeration. There's no point, no meaning in anything without the light of revelation. Without we did it part of the ayah, you cannot find any the meaning there.
Jazakallah khairan. Did you? No? Okay. Yeah, I think that it was a good segue. We can go on to the next paragraph then, inshallah. So man's boundless weakness and impotence makes him inferior to all other animals, and his intelligence, an instrument for conveying grief, sorrow, and sadness, makes him more wretched. Yet when he is illumined with that light, he rises above all animals and all creatures. Again, if anything, when we think about our intelligence, we might initially say we are not inferior, we are superior to all other animals. We're the ones that have farms, we're the ones that go on safari trips and look at lions who are just weak out there living. We're the ones who own dogs and cats, and I would not say we are inferior by any means. That's how I would initially think. And it's saying man's boundless weakness and impotence. And you were talking about all these like scientific discoveries and everything in my life, all this wealth we're gaining, technology we're developing. So again, maybe I don't think I'm weak and impotent. I don't think I'm inferior to animals. And it says my intelligence. I'm like, yes, I am intelligent. That's one thing I can agree with. But Nursi is saying an instrument for conveying grief, sorrow, and sadness, and it makes him more wretched. And he says that only with the light of belief he rises above animals and creatures. And I would like to challenge this notion. If anyone has an answer, I'd say no. I don't need light of belief to rise above animals and creatures. I am already owning them. I am already in control of them. I already am technologically advanced in them. And I don't think I'm weak and impotent. I'm doing a lot of amazing things. Okay, with intelligence, I find grief and sorrow and sadness. Okay, sure. But, would I choose to be a dumb animal versus an intelligent human? Okay, I experience sorrow every now and then, but is that such a bad thing? And then if we agree that Nursi is wrong, then let's find another text.
Oh, Sister Syra turned on her microphone for a minute.
Do you have your speaker?
We do have speakers, so if she wants to speak, don't want to be.
Sister Syra, if you have a comment, we can listen. If not, we can move on.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, no, definitely I listened to what you said, and three things came to mind. And I appreciate this putting the argument like such that we can think more clearly, whether it is Quranic ayat around not disturb the balance of the universe, and then, of course, from Hadith and Sirah, and just in general, our deen in itself, that just because Allah Ta'ala put us in charge of the earth or vigilancy does not mean exploitation. So that right there, what we see in the world, capitalistic mentality, materialistic mentality, greed, hoarding, exploitation of material wealth that is given to all humankind by Allah Ta'ala. But Allah Ta'ala also says, and in all monotheistic religions, I know Bible too, that be grateful for everything and not harm or torture animals or any life is there. So if we don't have the illumination of the light, which what is light? You know, from you and me, Alhamdulillah, Quran is the light. It is Allah Ta'ala says in itself that this is the guidance. This is the Allah Ta'ala's Allah Ta'ala says in Quran that I bring lightness from within the layers of darkness. So to me, as a species, our tendency to become dark is because we lose sight of this light. And for if you raise it a level up for religious versus not religious or a religious or atheistic mentality and way of believing, they cannot contend with the argument that you have a spirit, but they refuse to believe in the one who created the spirit. And then also that spirit governs in different forms and shapes: animals, plants, trees, earth, water, air, all of our natural world that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has built for us as a human race. Um, it extends through it, right? So when this paragraph says, if you lose this light, then you're impotent, poverty stricken, and your intelligence is actually going to make you more wretched. So if you look at the creation of these atomic bombs and weapons, what is this? Wretchedness. Those who have created it, even if it is for deterrent effect for the enemy, so to speak, who are we really kidding here? Ourselves. That as human race, we are willing to put destruction on earth just to make the point that I'm stronger than you, or I can take over your lands, or I can exploit you and undermine you. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from such loss of light, divine light, because to me, that's like suffocating our souls as we speak, and then not have anything to go back to Allah Ta'ala to ask for redemption and salvation, especially if people die with that sense of arrogance that it's all for me, and anything and everything that Allah Ta'ala has created besides me, living beings, I'm supposed to harm them, torture them, get the natural resources from them, get the lands from them. Because apparently I'm living in this illusion that I am never to leave this earth. And this earth is forever for me to revel in its bounties. Meanwhile, I'm disgracing not only the creation of Allah, but Nauzubillah, Allah Ta'ala's befitting gratitude that I owe Him. I'm failing terribly at giving it back to Him. That level of uh, gratefulness that He deserves. And that's what my reflection is. So, no, humankind's tendency to use whether it is the nafs or jahiliya or kufr or arrogance, along with being tempted by shaitan, we are not in our hal is not good. And that's why it's so important to teach our children and even us, our generations, especially those born after 19, let's say 60s, 70s, when we have seen the 3 or 4 genocides in our lifetimes. Um, we need to be on the right side of human history. Um, may Allah give us tawfiq. Jazakallah khair.
Inshallah. I think I mean you mentioned nuclear bombs and humans and vicegerency and how man misuses his qualities or her qualities. And I think I really kind of want to go back to this what Nursi says here. Man's boundless weakness and impotence make him inferior to all other animals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything I feel like we just mentioned, um, you know, nuclear bombs, man's intelligence, technology, all these different things. Okay, I can understand maybe, yes, we're acting bad, but how can I be inferior to an animal? Did you raise your hand before or no? Okay.
You want me to answer that? I can briefly address it, and then maybe I think if you look at all of the, yes, there are so many documentaries that say that animals devour other animals, or the food chain is really ruthless. That's correct for predatory animals because that's their instinct, that's their nature. But if you look at animal behaviors and even evolutionary veterinary medicine, when you put animals in zoos, they are sympathetic towards each other, however few there are put together, because they realize that they are not in their natural environment. There are adoptions between ducks and dogs and cats and lambs on a farm when the mom of another animal dies. Strange Friendships is a documentary you may have seen. Animals are better at offering compassion to each other than we as humans, because even if we are fostering, even if we become adopting parents, there is very likely chance that at times we are going to lose it in terms of our compassion and be very unkind to the adopted. So, and another way that we are servient, I will say, in our ethics, uh, is because when you look at uh, animals hunting animals, they only hunt what they need to eat, right? But the rest of it is they leave the herd, the pack, the flock, everything, because they understand that you can't just gulp the whole food source in one go, because you won't be able to finish eating and satiating yourself. In fact, you will end up making yourself sick. That's why Allah Ta'ala has said in Surah Takasur and other places in Quran that look, until you're not reaching your qabr, your mouth is never filled up. The more is less for you. And that's why the emphasis in Quran that unfortunately we are tempted so terribly by the worldly material gains. And hence that's why such deeply painful life stories of Anbiya are there. Allah Ta'ala says in Quran himself that, and very few of you are guided, and very few of you I am going to guide. Very with the Akhirin and the Awwalin, the ones who are discerning, the ones who are reasoning. Why? Because if you look at animals' use of their senses when it comes to compassion, even when we are not the best in treating a house pet animal, little bit of food, little bit of play is going to turn them around to loyalty again. Otherwise, they'll go and sit in a corner and they look sad, but they're not going to necessarily bite or hurt the person who is looking after or is supposed to look after them. But if we look at ourselves, both as nations, in most cases, and as individuals, we at workplaces, in universities, the competition oriented mentality takes the better of us. And those senses, in these senses, I think I feel that not to downgrade human compassion and human kindness and human generosity when it does shine through. Of course, that's commendable. But on the whole, as a species, with the tendency to go towards the dark and to our basal self, uh, we mm, we can't be as sentient as animals can be. That's why Allah Ta'ala says in Quran, I'm forgetting the reference, but I raised you, or I made you, and I raised you, or I debased you. So there is a potential for going to the very high level of being the Homo sapien, or being um, the best creature of Allah. But there is also that possibility always, that we are going to ourselves uh, ruin our souls and our eternity. And again, Allah Ta'ala protect us from such a bad fate. Jazakallah
Amen.
khair. I hope this answered your question. Thanks.
Zarian, would you like to?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking of this point about like how we've made how humans have made all these technological advancements and so forth, and like why would that mean that we are weaker or more inferior than animals? And I was thinking, and I think we might have talked about this before, but I was just thinking that it takes a really long time for us to learn how to do anything. So I think from what I understood from this is that humans, like, first of all, we have to go through a decade or so just to be able to learn how to walk, eat properly, like go to school, learn how to like learn basic things about the universe. And then like maybe another decade or so to mature and be able to think about things like, I don't know, like engineering, how to build a plane, and like maybe another decade or so to actually get a job and like put that into practice, and build this plane, for example. Whereas a bird is, once it hatches, it takes what, like a few days. With wings, it's already been given and already learns how to fly, in significantly less like time. And then as humans, we go through this whole period of learning just to imitate what this bird has already been given. So I think um like if without the light, we're just using our intelligence to create these technological innovations that maybe are just making us like more, maybe slightly more efficient than what animals are doing. Maybe not so even actually with the plain example, but maybe we're just doing something slightly better than an animal is already doing. Like we're building these skyscrapers. Well, a bird is perfectly content making its nest, and it's doing so in like a matter of like days, just collecting materials here and there. And it's perfectly content in this like small house that it's making. Whereas we, I think with like our intelligence and everything, we always have to continue striving for more. We have to build a higher skyscraper that, I mean, it's essentially just fulfilling the same purpose as a nest. It's just supposed to be like a shelter. Um, so I guess without like the light, it's kind of like, what is the point of making a bigger, higher, better nest? If it's just like once we like die, it's meaningless for us anyway. Um, or if like something like causes that skyscraper to fall, it's like a much bigger loss because you've invested and put a lot of money into it. So I think like from that perspective, like our intelligence becomes, when we're like just doing things to become a bit better than animals, um it causes us more, as it's saying, like grief, sorrow, and sadness, because I feel like we are just there doesn't seem to be a purpose to it, other than like doing the technological advancements for the sake of making these technological advancements, whereas animals have their purpose, they do them, and they are content with it and don't have such misery. So that's kind of what I understood from those couple of paragraphs.
No, thank you. I think that was very helpful. Like one, as you said, like animals, right when they're, I guess, born, very quickly they start fulfilling their purpose. Like there's not this, I guess, what is my purpose? Why do I exist? Kind of process they go through. It's rather very quickly they get to work and they start living according to what their purpose is through action. They show that as a human, I find my whole life I have this question, what's my purpose? What am I meant to do? You go your whole life saying, what career should I choose? What should I be doing? Like, what should I do in my life? Constantly these questions. And in that sense, I definitely feel inferior to an animal. And then you talk about how like technology and advancements, like what meaning? I mean, we're talking about meaninglessness. Like, if you can build skyscrapers, you can go to Mars. But really, what tie does this have to anything that's meaningful? Um, and
One example. There's a story. I don't know how true it is, but it's a narration from South America when the European forces invaded there. They forcing the local people to extract more and more gold. Okay? So they're working there, they're extracting all this gold and taking away all this gold. One day, a chief asked these Europeans, what are you going to do all this gold? You cannot put that many gold on you, like as a clothing. Like why you are collecting all this, right? So when you say, for instance, we are better because we are building all this stuff and so on and so forth, a chief of the animal would say, why you are doing this again? Like you could have this nest, as the Sister Zaren said, and live there. Why you are trying to put all this gold on you? So, and you wouldn't have any answer. I mean, you could say that the gold is good because it's precious, it's whatever, whatever. But then you will realize again, without the light of revelation, it's just arbitrary. Like you build these buildings or you have this, your fancy car, not you, but other people has their fancy cars. And you say, okay, I'm better. And there will be somebody asking you, what are you going to do with this car? That's great, you have it. But what is the point? And you cannot answer. There's a raised hand, but you are the moderator. You decide. I will not give the name of this person raising hand, so that you will be objective.
okay, we can listen to the raised hand online and then in person.
Assalamu alaikum. I was just rereading the paragraph or this fifth droplet, and we started off the discussion talking about how the message that the Prophet brings, peace be upon him, makes meaningful, right? Or allows me to see the meaningfulness of creation of the world around me. And then after making this point about the world, it turns to the human being. And what I was getting out of this was that, or one thing that I got out of this was that it's through that message that, I mean, first I have to ask myself, and admit to myself, whether I really do have all these weaknesses, this boundless weakness, in fact, right? And maybe even if I don't always realize the boundlessness of that weakness, I can definitely say, yes, I have weaknesses. And some days they feel much more boundless than other days, right? But I definitely have weaknesses, and I feel the various dependencies that I have and the need for help that I have, and even the language he's using here of how the very faculty of intelligence becomes an instrument for conveying grief and sorrow and all this. So in many ways, I can feel burdened by this reality that I inhabit of neediness, of weakness, of impotence. But the point that I got was that through that prophetic message, right, I see that I'm not just weak just for the sake of it so that I can suffer. I don't have my intelligence just so I can think of all the scenarios that can go wrong and sort of despair in my never-ending anxiety, right? These various states that I find myself in, they don't exist just to torture me or just so I suffer, which is the worldview I would have otherwise, right? In which, oh, this is just what it means to be a human being, you know? And some of us, we get more anxious or stressed than others. And the more you know, the more burdened you are, you know, that's just how things are. Like, this is the sort of language that um, is commonly used, that we commonly end up using. But here, through that message, I guess the transformative aspect of it is that no, like that state of neediness I find myself in is it has a value that points to something beyond just the immediate experience of it, right? Um, it can be an instrument not just to convey grief and sorrow and sadness, but it can be an instrument that in fact makes me, as the text says, a petted monarch, right? Or just like, you know, like if you have a little kitten at home, or perhaps I guess if you have, like, you know, the smallest baby in the room, they become the petted monarch, right? Through their cuteness, through their vulnerability, everybody kind of looks at them, admires them, wants to pet them and whatnot. um and in fact, due to his complaints, he becomes a spoiled vicegerent of the earth, which I think needs to be investigated further, and we shouldn't take for granted these terminologies. But just the brief point that I'm failingly trying to make, perhaps, is that um, through this light of the prophetic message, the state, just as the world becomes missives, dominical missives, right, letters from my Rob, the various states that I find myself in, the inherent neediness that I find myself so encircled in, becomes meaningful, becomes valuable, and becomes in fact so valuable, so instrumental, that it takes me directly to my creator. So those are just some thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a comment over here.
I was just thinking, I mean, we're mainly talking about the part of the fifth droplet where we're saying that because of the light of the message, the human became kind of like transformed from a wretched, invaluable, or less valuable than an animal to something else. But I think, like, if you would ask this to a non-religious or a secular person, they would still think like humans are more valuable than than animals. I feel like, I don't know, for example, like we compared, like Zareen was saying, that a bird will learn how to fly right when it's born, or like few weeks after it's born, I don't know. And humans will spend like ages and ages and years and building like a plane, you know, after I think centuries of like hardships to move from one place to another, after so many experiments, after so many like hardships, then they reach this and they build a plane, you know, while an animal can do this. But like, well, first of all, like not all animals can fly, you know, like why should I compare myself to a bird? Because I was given other, you know, like means. I can walk and I can run and I can swim. So why should I compare myself to a bird? Like, yes, I'm building this big house to live in, but my ancestors also lived in a cave and we did fine. Like, for someone might say, oh, this building is just a, like, You might say like, this is a building that is meaningless. I could live in a small space on a nest or so. For others, this like architecture is art. So then this will lead us to say that what actually, even without being religious or so, what is making me human is more like even just for this example, say I am able to appreciate this and see it as art, while an animal will not be able to see that. Like I am able to use all these resources that are on earth to make my life easier and better, even if it's just, for some people this is just a materialistic view, but still I'm doing that. You might say that me as a human, like we're supposed to be the vicegerent on earth and take care of it, but we destroyed it. But then we're talking about the more like the collective of like humans, while I'm talking just about me as a person. I don't want to destroy the earth. I want to eat just like like, even if not being religious, any person now this age can be like, I just want to eat as much as I need. I want to wear sustainable clothes. I don't want to hurt the earth. I don't want to, like, it has nothing to do with being religious or not. Like, now, where these ideas are coming from are something else, but like, I don't think this is like something that I could say that's why animals are better than me. Yes, if we talk about the collective effect of human beings on Earth is bad, but if I talk about me as an individual now, I don't want to do all of these things. I don't want to, I don't know, I walk to work or bike. I don't ride my car. I don't want to live in the fanciest home ever, but I mean, I would appreciate, a warm and cozy house. I don't know, because it's also, I know it's good for me. I need the warmth. Maybe I don't have the fur and the feather, whatever, that keeps me warm, but I was able to use the resources and the means that are here and made a fire. So maybe I'm actually better than an animal. Another thing, you could say that animals, most of them can survive in like, and this is purely like naturalistic thing, let's say, not me like as an intellectual human, would say like animals, different, like they survive only in different, like they adapt to different environments or so. And you look at the species, a human species, we actually survive in like extreme environments, in very different environments, although we are still the same species. So I don't know, I feel like when you think about it like that, you find a lot of like advantages as a humans, like makes us like, someone can bring that argument that humans are still better than animals in so many ways, even without being religious. Yeah.
No, thank you for that honest question. I would say I find myself agreeing with you very much, especially uh whatever mindset I am in today. It says man's boundless weakness and impotence, and I'm like, we're not that weak. We have a lot of power to especially destroy. Like in destruction, we're very powerful, but even in building, it seems we're powerful. And then it says inferior to animals, and I agree. I'm very much struggling to see. Okay, I can see some things, but am I really inferior? Would I consider myself an inferior to an animal? Before we go to Kadir.
I mean, just to clarify sister's question, are we talking about like the mental capacity of a human being and a bird, or are we talking about like what the physical capabilities are? And then the other question is like, what is the message that we are supposed to take that elevates us? Like, we have all of these sorrows in our world and like all of these things that we are going through in our life. So, is it the afterlife and knowing the knowledge of the afterlife or making sense through that? Like, could someone clarify that, or like what does the author mean here when he's saying like all of those things are lifted? So what are the steps that one should take so that like all of those sorrows are lifted from your life and you eventually become better than a bird that has no issues in their life, like they're going around their day? Like, that is my question.
So thank you for your honest questions.
He said it on
Okay. Okay. I don't know what happens after the discussion. But anyway, so I mean, you're right. The emphasis in the text was for the thing that distinguishes human from animals most is humans' intellect. And this intellect is making human miserable without revelation. The intellect is the tool which, in all this discussion, actually, as the atheist question came from him. Anyways, so an atheist friend's question, yeah. So with intellect, we go to Mars. Birds have never gone to Mars yet. I mean, we haven't gone either, but almost there. So, yeah, with intellect, we are apparently becoming superior than the animals per standards of the society. Because with intellect, we are outpowering a horse, taming it, and then getting on the horse. So I am definitely superior than the horse. Otherwise, horse is stronger than me, but then giving its reins to my hands because I am outpowering the strong horse with my intellectual power, if you take it as such. But this intellect becomes my source of my misery because with this intellect, then I ask these questions of the sorrows that are coming from the past, worries that are coming from the future. You know, when probably you have seen mad people. I'm not sure if they're being called mad anymore, but we used to call them mad. So people who does not have a properly functioning intellect. In my hometown, that there are like 6 to 10 famous mad people. So much so that they have a calendar for other than me. Yeah, they have a calendar of the mad people of my hometown. Like they were like the people in the street where everybody knows them, everybody recognizes them, but they're happy people. And everybody enjoys them, makes jokes at them, not to abuse them. But when they talk to the mad person jokingly, the mad person responds back and whatnot. But you see that this mad person is perfectly happy, like doesn't have a world of, or even if they are sad for a few seconds, they get sad, then you give some candy like something, then they become super happy. Like with intellect, we are getting drowned in those problems of ours. That's why meaninglessness becomes a problem for you since you have intellect. Because it's with intellect, for example, you have one stomach, right, Abdurrahman? Not four, yeah. So you have to feed this one stomach. But intellect is another huge, bottomless stomach of yours, which also wants to get satiated, satisfied. And without revelation, you are going to be like living this pain of hunger forever. This is what this intellect puts us into, makes us way lower than the animals. This is why we are trying to, as we were discussing since the beginning, just don't pose, just put your busy your intellect with this, with that, something totally unrelated to you in, I don't know, oh yeah, they found a new species in the deserts of somewhere. This is what Google is suggesting me to read. I'm not, I don't even know the existence of such a desert, but trying to busy my intellect with such stuff so that I'm not going to feel this misery. So if I do not fix the issue, I try to amuse it. This is how we are trying to save the day. But in here, author's point is, without properly feeding the intellect, you are getting lower than the animal because of your intellect. But with the message that's brought, now get to Kadir's question, with the message that's brought by the messenger, a proper meaning is being pointed to this intellect, which is human is not satisfied with temporariness at all. I want eternity. I don't want to die. I don't want to become nothing. So give me a meaning which points to this unendingness. Both this points to afterlife, akhirah, because I want to be unending as well. But what does it mean for me to be unending either? An eternal source, an eternally merciful one. And we do love our mothers because we do see them as source of mercy. But what happens once the mother passes away? Like it is such a devastation because this was this beautiful source of mercy for you, and she's no more. So yes, mom is so valuable. This is why I was giving the example of family. even in a atheist friend would bring up the topic of family as well, because it is love. And love is really a valuable feeling, much valuable than a Tesla. But even the love itself or the mercy itself becomes a torture if she is no more. Because I am constantly and eternally in need of love. So my mom's love, my mom's mercy is never enough. It even becomes my curse, because every time I see my mom with white hair, it gives me pain, because this mercy is going to decay, become no more at some point. So the message the Prophet ﷺ brings in is, your mom's mercy is a sign of an eternally merciful one. Read it as such. So that eternally merciful one never dies. He is alive right now, meaning available for you, not dead, not sleeping, like explaining it in terms that I can understand. And says he is baqi, he is eternal. This is the news that saves me from this agony. This is what makes this intellect a proper intellect. That's why when the author concludes, in the translation, it got lost a little bit, but the last sentence, otherwise the universe and firmaments should not be in existence. The translation says would not be, but I would translate it as should not have been in existence. If the existence was how it feels without revelation, then it should not have existed in the first place. But once the revelation comes into the picture and makes human a proper being, really, then intellect really becomes useful, because you see that intellect seems to be a good thing relative to animals. But you see that it becomes source of your misery. This is why you're trying to get drunk, either by busying yourself or literally going and drinking something because it hurts. And it shouldn't have been like this. Once the revelation comes, you see that, oh, it fits the picture perfectly. You say, yes, without revelation, existence shouldn't have happened in the first place. With revelation, everything fits into place.
And I think the point here definitely is not about, as you said, whose body is better, right? Or even the whose, as Yusuf mentioned, whose brain is bigger. But the point is whether this body or brain serving you or not. So it seems when we look at the human beings, neither the body nor the intellect or mind is not the serving the human being himself, herself, without the point of the light of revelation. Revelation being they are given for you for certain purposes. And to the extent you fulfill these purposes, they will give you contentment. Without these, what they do, your body is constant need. You feed it and it becomes hungry again. You feed it, it becomes hungry again. And then it gets sick and so on and so forth. I mean, you can say that, oh, but I can also walk with my body. And the answer is, yeah, you walk for what? It serves you how? Right? You say, I build this and that with my mind. And the question is, yeah, great, you did it. For what? To protect myself from the outside world and so on. I mean, it's like I had some, I was on the negative side because I need to be protected. Now at least I'm at the zero, you say, right? When I'm inside the building, my house. Obviously, it's not that you didn't gain anything. Now it would be better you didn't have this weakness or whatever, you didn't feel it, right? It would be better for you if you didn't feel the cold or sickness and so on, and your body just got rot. Like the people say, if we are so lucky that we feel pain, right? Because otherwise we would, break our legs and we wouldn't know it, and it would get worse and so on. And I say, so what? You will die anyway. At least you will die without having the pain. And what is the real gain there? How it serves you? I mean, if you look from the naturalistic perspective, you have your mind, and what you gain from it from a naturalistic perspective, either anxiety or the fear. The animals, the deers, let's say, they run away from the lion when lion is the feeding. They try to eat, chasing. Yeah, the next moment the lion is thirsty, the deers are thirsty. What happens? They go to the same water spot, they drink from there in order, nobody attack anyone. And deers, they're not afraid. They don't have the anxiety, oh, lion will come and chase me. No, they just go and drink their water. What we do right now, we are going to Mars for what? Look at the explanations. What if our species cease to exist on Earth? We have to protect our species. Anxiety of non-existing, some like a thing. Our species is here. It's not ceasing existence. But it may, cease existence in 100 years. What kind of life is this? Like, is this the mind that's serving you? You have the anxiety of a stranger can attack you. You cannot even walk on the street. I'm not saying that these fears are baseless or anxiety is baseless. They have some base, and this is your reality. You have this in your life. You look at your past and you have regrets. How it serves you. From a naturalistic perspective, no meaning at all. It will be better, as Yusuf said, you were just a mad person. From a naturalistic perspective again. How it becomes better, you see this weakness or impotence as a means to know about its creator, your creator, and it takes you the eternal satisfaction. If it happens, they serve you. I'm hungry. Okay? If I just feed my body and I say that I am full, it's not serving me. It's my enemy. The next time I get hungry again, I have to feed it again. So what happens? I start developing this anxiety. What if there's no enough food in my refrigerator, the fridge? What if I don't have enough money to buy more food? I mean, you may not have this anxiety because you have a good salary for now, but then you will have the anxiety of, what if I am laid off? Why? Because you can get hungry. This is your enemy. But when you see your hunger, as author says, Dominical missives, pages inscribed with signs of creation. When you see your hunger as my creator giving me this hunger, and through this hunger, I appreciate his being razak, giving the food. I appreciate this. And you get this, the pleasure being fed. And instead of getting anxious, you ask the question, how else my creator will give me pleasure. It's like you are a child now waiting for the next surprise. The last time he gave me the pleasure, satisfaction through feeding me, I cannot imagine what he will do next, you say. It becomes a tie between you and the eternally besought one, whose treasure do not exhaust. If it becomes such a link, then you start appreciating your hunger. Your hunger is not an enemy anymore, but only when through the light of revelation that prophet brought. So that's the transformation the prophet made from the hunger, the enemy, to the hunger, to the excitement. Such a huge transformation. And you can only appreciate this through the light of revelation. Otherwise, being a deer is better than, I'm sorry, but better than being an Elon Musk, who's the richest guy, but every day he shares his anxieties about the human species getting extinct, or alien species attacking us, or AI becoming so big. I mean, these are not jokes. These are real anxieties that these people have. What if AI becomes the biggest thing, the bigger thing, and they destroy us? I mean, it's destroying you anyway already. You don't have your life, it seems. You already destroyed. You don't need AI. Just the imagination of AI is enough for you. Or imagination of an alien species, just enough for you to be destroyed. Instead of living such a life, I would prefer living like a deer. Go to the same spot with this alien species, drink the same water, and say Salamun alaikum. They say alaikum salam, and I go my way.
Yeah, Jazakallah khairan. I think, does that help? Do you feel inferior now? I think one way for me to understand it is definitely, I feel that when I live life according to like just chasing after things, trying to get my like things, material things or something else to like fulfill me, or not, it doesn't have to be material. It could be like my mother's love. If I'm like, this is the value of my life is my mother's love, and I just attach myself to that or something like that, even though it sounds nice, even that will die. Even that will betray me. I see that everything I seek help from, or everything I try to tie my value to, or I try to say, okay, this gives me pleasure, this will help me. Everything that I see that eventually it betrays me, it gives me pain. Whatever I do is just pain. And I mean, this is why, people commit suicide, or this is why people just are extremely unhappy or depressed. They say like whatever they do, it's not working out, but they have maybe a hope. So you live with this hope of like chasing the next thing. But I can definitely see in my life, in a world where everything betrays me, I am much more inferior than an animal. Because I look at an animal in the documentaries, they show an animal chasing the deer or the gazelle or whatever, and then it tries so hard and then it fails. And I don't see an animal like that throws a tantrum or says life sucks or everything's awful or something like this. I see instantly the animal is like, okay, and then walks back. Like there is no like internal, why does God hate me? Why am I abandoned? Life's is just conflict. I don't know. I don't see these feelings. It seems so like submission, like so it's submitted itself. It's an acceptance. Whereas I see in myself like everything I'm grabbing, and when I can't get it, I feel betrayed or I hate it, or it's a completely different worldview where I feel everything against me. And then I will end with just what Nursi is saying here. It says, that is to say, if it were not for his light, the light of the message, the universe and man and all things would be nothing. And kind of we talked about this. Everything is meaningless. Everything becomes nothing. And we live with this maybe delusion that it is actually something and we chase after it, but then we realize it's nothing and then it gives us pain and then we become more inferior than an animal at that point. Okay, so we're out of time. Jazakallah khairan. Inshallah, we'll continue with the 6th droplet next week. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.